the Northwest home for paranormal, you're listening to U.S. Phenomenon with your host, Mario Magana.
From the Pacific Northwest in the shadow of the 1962 World's Fair, the Space Needle. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever the case may be for you. I am your host, Mario Magana. Couple housekeeping things as we get close to ending the year 2024. A big shout out to all you radio listeners and podcast listeners. Thank you so much for making us the top 50th podcast downloaded on our podcasting platform. So thank you. Again, I'd love to thank our radio affiliates as we get close to ending the year. KOSW, KAPY, our flagship station KVI, and an RIP to our one of our radio stations, KGRG, who is, as I recently learned, has lost their broadcasting license. So if you're someone out there who loves to help college radio stations or just a fan of local radio, please send me a text 775-990-5151. We want to make sure we take care of our local radio stations out there. So tonight, as we all know that when love hurts, sometimes people run. There is a couple who has endured 50 years and has faced significant challenges, including addiction, infidelity, bankruptcy, separation, and 6 years ago, a new period of a beginning of the couples developed. A tragic suicide of their younger son was devastating, and Diana remarked, "If we weren't together when our son died, I know we would never have gotten back together." Her insight underscores how shared grief can unexpectedly force deep connections. With 5 years, I want to say 5 years, how about 5 decades of marriage wisdom? The Snowdens will share how to navigate both good, bad times in a relationship. Their journey survives and is a powerful reminder that love can endure most anything. And I think most days, I think we all would say, it's my pleasure to welcome John and Diana Snowden. Welcome to U.S. Phenomenon. Before we, just real quick, I know that there are couples out here or even single people who are always complaining, I can't find somebody. I can't find anybody. So 50 years. Congratulations to you guys. And I thought it was important to have you guys come on to share your guys' story and journey with me and others who may be going through the hustle and bustle of life right now with the holidays vastly approaching us, work, just all these commitments that we do for our families and things of that nature. So welcome, John and Diane, to the show. Thank you so much for coming to hang out.
Hello, and thank you, Mario.
Thanks for inviting us on. This is going to be an interesting conversation.
Well, 50 years, ups and downs. How in most relationships nowadays, the younger generation don't seem to make it out 5 years, or they get the 20-year itch. I've heard, good friends of mine saying after 20 years of marriage ending. What do you say to people who are listening right now that are on that cusp?
Well, my personal view is that the real problem is that nobody has heard of what's called the basic law of life, and that's basic. We have no control over that. I don't have any control over that either.
Hey, you just keep doing your thing. Just keep going. You got it.
But we first learned of the basic law of life, which goes this way: there is an illusion, there's a disillusion, and there's joy. And most people go through the illusion stage, but when they hit the disillusion, which is basic law of life, they don't know what to do. So they throw in the towel and they run, or it goes on for years. Some people just stay in the illusion stage. Oh, everything's fine. Nothing. We don't ever argue. We never had a harsh word between us. And so they go through the superficial experience without really understanding what it means to be married. And they never hit the joy period. And we, by the way, went through it more than once, which will come out, I'm sure, today, how we went through the illusion, the disillusion, and the joy, and then repeated the cycle. So that's probably one of the main reasons that people don't make it. That's one. There's more, but that's
Sure. And when you two lovebirds first met, where did you guys meet at?
Oh dear.
You tell that one.
Okay.
It wasn't Facebook, right?
No. It wasn't even invented when we were there.
Sure.
By the way, it's actually 57 years.
57. Well, congratulations.
Imagine. I don't know where the time went. But anyway, we met across a crowded room. You know that saying?
Love at first sight?
Yes.
Okay.
We were in grade 9, and he was on the other side of the gym. They used to do that when I went to high school, and
I think that is still, even when I was the dance, guys would be on one side and the gals would be on the other, for sure. So
right.
It hasn't changed over the decades.
Okay, good. Well, I looked across the room and I saw him standing there, and I have to admit, yes, my heart did skip a beat. And my friend said, don't get involved with him. He's a rebel and you'll have nothing but trouble. She was an old girlfriend, but she became my best friend, and she was thinking of my best interests the way I look at it now. And what I didn't know was he looked back at me and he was thinking the same things, but he was kind of a macho man. So he had to pretend that I didn't spark an interest in him for a long time, actually. But anyway, our eyes connected, and I thought, okay, well, I'll listen to my friend, and I'll just put my eyes down, look someplace else, look around. And that's how our first time we met, there was that little spark in there.
Well, I noticed this girl across the room, and something went flip, flip, flip. But I had my buddies were around me, and I couldn't, we were 13, 14. I couldn't admit that I had an interest in this girl. As a matter of fact, later, either that year or the next year, Diana was a talker, and she was sitting at the back of the row, second row to me, and I was in the front seat. I was the scholar. I was at the front seat learning. And Diana was talking at the back of the row, and the teacher said, "Diana, come up here." So she ended up in the seat beside me.
Oh, nice.
And I looked at her and I said, so everybody could hear, "What did I do to deserve this?" And of course, I got chuckles, and that was the beginning of my habit of putting Diana down. And it just got worse as, of course, this went on. But
sure,
I had been out. I skipped school one afternoon, about grade 11 maybe, and with a bunch of fellows, and we went out and had a bit of drinking going on in the boat. But there was a pep rally because the next day was a field day, and in the county, the district we call it here, and so we skipped school and went to the pep rally, and they had, you mentioned the boys on the boys on one side and the girls. We used to do the girls on the inside, a circle, and the boys on the outside in a circle. And the one group would go one way and the other was go the other. And whenever the music stopped, you had to dance with the person opposite. So this went on, and the music stopped, and who was standing in front of me but Diana? Now there's another guy standing beside me. I think he was interested too, so I just kind of shoved him out of the way and grabbed a hold of Diana, and you can take it from there, dear.
Well, yes, and it was 2 nice slow dances, and I was just pitter patter, you know.
Sure.
In those days, I was well protected from home, so I had to take the cab home at 10:30. The pep rally started at 9, and I'm not sure what time it was, but they called an intermission, So we stopped and he didn't leave. And I thought, why isn't he leaving to go and join his friends? But then he knew she has to leave at 10:30. He knew all these things about me that I didn't know he knew. But anyway, I guess that's the way it was for us. It isn't for everybody. Some people take long time to become friends. And I guess it was in grade 12 when he decided that he had to make this grand pronouncement that he was going to marry me and he loved me. And most women would kind of go, what are you talking about? Sure. But he made it kind of his life's purpose to do that. And he actually changed. Then he went from this business of finding jokes to say about me to not being able to do enough for me. So that early part was really, really good.
So, I mean, you're getting engaged at a young age out of high school. How did your 20s, in the vast of your beginning of your 20s, out of your teens into your 20s, how did that relationship, how did you guys continue to evolve as a couple and move forward?
Well, he went to St. Mary's to play hockey, and my parents didn't really kind of like that idea. So I went to Ottawa for my nursing training. So I had to finish my nursing training. And yes, he'd asked me 2 or 3 times when I was in nursing training to marry him. And I'd say, no, can't, no, got to get my nursing training first and then perhaps after. So we didn't get married particularly young. We were 23 or so. And, but it was always there. I just can't explain it to anybody. It was just always there that I really cared for him. I liked what he stood for. I didn't know about this drinking, honestly. He hid it so well. And I had lots of people in my family who drank a lot.
Sure.
But I didn't notice it was cultural. It was Irish. It was French. Like, really? Hello.
I think even to this day, it still seems to be a cultural thing where it's a social thing where everyone's like maybe out. And most people are able to hide a drinking situation. I was just talking to somebody the other day where I haven't had a lick of drink, something to drink in, like, besides water and other non-alcoholic beverages, in like 77 days. And not because I have a drinking issue, but to make it more of a look. It's normal not to drink, where people are like, oh, you're not drinking. It's like, what do I do? So, but, so that's, as you were saying, Diana, you were talking about, you didn't know that there was a mask of a drinking situation.
Oh yeah. I didn't see it at all. I didn't see it at all. All I saw was the good things he was doing. And my dad, who French Canadian,
sure,
as poor French Canadians that are listening to me. But anyway, my dad was always the jolly type person when he was drinking, and he just loved John. He just loved him after he got to meet him and so forth. And so he could do no wrong. Didn't matter what he did or didn't do. But then I was not one of the ones to run home to mom and dad and tell them what was going on either after we got married. But it would be about 2 or 3 years into our marriage that this started. It wasn't bad. We could go to friends. We'd have parties. You had a lot of fun. But it's when he wasn't coming home and all that set in. I didn't know what to do with it. Really, I didn't. I just didn't know what to do.
John, what was going through your head during those times when you look back and you reflect on that?
Well, it's interesting. I turned 80 on November 10th, and my defense partner from back in minor hockey, I thought his birthday was December the 6th. So I don't know why that was burned in my mind, but I called him. I got a hold of him, and we reminisced about the days we were playing minor hockey. Now, sure. When I was 15, my nickname was Alky. And I was talking to a guy. We were at a banquet for people who are still playing hockey at our age. And I sat beside a fellow, and I was telling him this. Oh, yeah. He says, I remember that. And that's a long time ago. That's sure. 65 years ago. But it points out the fact that at 15, my nickname was Alky. That should have been a clue. Now, other people called me that. They got in trouble because my buddies wouldn't put up with it, but they could call me that and it was okay.
Sure.
So, but when I was young and I played hockey, all junior hockey, when you're young, your body can take the pounding. But
yeah,
I was talking to Rob there, we spent 3 days a week in the summer when we all had little jobs, trying to figure out where we're going to get our next person who was at 21 to get beer for us, get booze. And that was kind of a part-time job on our part-time job in the summertime. So that's how we started out. And I had at our wedding, by the way, I want to show you this. You ever see two happier people than that?
I mean, look at you guys. I love it. I love that.
Now, can you see what's above Diana's head there?
The cross.
Yes. And notice that it's above her head.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Not mine.
Even you.
Not mine. She was
the angel.
She was the believer for sure. And that's if I wanted to sum it up, she's the reason, aside from God, that kept us together, because she had the faith and I didn't. And I'll talk more about that as we go along. But
sure.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
It's interesting because as you were talking just a few minutes ago about, nicknames and things of that nature, like your core group of friends would call you Alky, but anybody outside of that core group, they were like, nope, you're not no one's getting that nickname's us. That's an us thing, not a you outside the trusted circle. And by the way, let's remind, for those who may be listening of a younger age, we understand that in the United States, you got to be 21. So we're not condoning any underage drinking. He's just sharing his story in regards to things that had gone on back in those days. And I think that still plays true to most younger generations, trying to be that macho, egotistical. I mean, still trying to be tough, trying to navigate that teenage awkwardness of trying to learn who you are as you continue to grow and evolve. And if I could tell younger Mario to this day, not that I was a big drinker, not that I did any of that kind of stuff, just to be myself and continue just to it's weird because most younger kids are like, they feel awkward and they're like, it's weird. I don't want to say anything, but it's almost weird because you don't say something, but to remind younger individuals, people, just say hi to people. You strike up a conversation, continue to be you, just say something when you're out there, because I think as we navigate as teenagers, looking back, I think that's when the alcohol kind of helps loosen that inhibition of like, oh, I feel awkward. Now I feel a little loose. No, but you sharing your story of that piece of you being a young man, of drinking, playing hockey, then getting married and not knowing it, maybe you not knowing it was a situation. And then, Diana, you kind of you're like, wait, what's really going on? What are we masking here?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because on our wedding day, he turns to me, we're having everybody's toasting, etc. And he said, okay, dear, I promise I'm going to quit drinking. And I thought to myself, why is he saying that to me? Why is he saying that to me? Because I'm not saying I was oblivious of kids drinking and that he'd had a little history, but I didn't know his moniker there, the Alky thing. I didn't know anything about that. And I didn't get out much because my parents were very, very
smart. Well,
they sure kept me, I don't want to use the word cloistered, but
Cloistered.
But I didn't know. I didn't know. And how can you not know? How can you not know? But I didn't. Because it was all part of the culture that I was raised in. And it didn't, it just didn't seem to matter at that time. So when he told me this, I remember being very shocked. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just remember he said that, but I don't know why he's saying that to me. And nothing's going, the illusion, right? Remember we talked about the illusion, everything's going to be okay. We're just going to make no mistakes like all those other people that got married did. We're not going to do that. We're just going to be ourselves. And, well, that did, of course, the illusion.
It seems like even, coming from out of a marriage, which was a long time ago, and being very cordial to my ex-wife, and our daughter's success, her success is our daughter's success, and vice versa. And I know that we both believe that to be the case. There's no real manual for marriage.
No.
And I thought, how awesome is it that you two are out here to share your journey about what the good, bad, and the ugly have been for you, to give others an opportunity to say they may be close to throwing in the towel, as most people would say, because there is people say, there's a lot of guys, tough guys, who say, oh, I'm not going to counseling, I'm not doing that.
Right.
Maybe they don't have a faith, and they're kind of, and that's okay too, whatever, whatever floats your boat in how you navigate life. But there's real no manual on how marriages all work. And so as you guys continue to share your story and your journey, and you saying, well, I didn't know that this was a situation, you saying, well, I didn't really understand that there was really a problem until he may have sparked that, ignited that little thing in the back of your head. You're like, okay, well, why? Now, John, did you feel like at that point in your life, you're like, okay, I need to stop? Or was it just like you knew that this was going to be a part of the continued evolution of this new marriage and this new thing?
Well, my enjoyment came from playing golf, playing hockey, gambling, being with the boys. And when I first started out, it was beer mainly. And then I moved, got a better job, and I ran into people who were, I was 24, they were 45. So their families had already grown up. And
sure,
this guy opens up his trunk, and it wasn't a case of beer, it was a case of liquor. And he had to keep it in his trunk because his family would gobble it up on him. So he kept the trunk of his car. But I thought, boy, I've been dropped right into the promised land, just like I did the first time when I went to play hockey. I got in a guy's car, and
sure,
the trunk, and there's a case of beer, and the guy in the front seat had a cast on his hand. He was a fighter, so I had protection. And the other guy, he knew all the girls in town that did and didn't, and I was just dropped into this paradise. And that was the beginning of a real go with it. And then go ahead.
How long were you guys married before you started having kids?
We were married 22, about 2 or 3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
Candy was born, and of course that cramped my style, because now how am I going to do all the things I like doing and have become accustomed to doing? Diana wouldn't be able to work because she's going to have this baby. And so Diana presented me, I think it was Valentine's Day, with the good news. And immediately I thought, oh man, how am I going to, I got to change my whole MO here to get what I wanted. It's that old thing of selfishness. Selfishness is just a killer for a marriage, and it was a killer for ours. So that began the what we call the 7 Years' War. And
describe that for someone who maybe someone who hasn't been married for that long and may be close to that. What is that? Describe that for what you guys went through.
I guess for me, I became really, really depressed. And the doctor didn't believe me that John had a drinking problem. The lawyer didn't believe me I had a drinking problem. He did. And friends, of course, they didn't Of course, it was just all my fault, or wasn't thinking right. So I had no support at all. And I told you, and wasn't the type to go home to mama and dada, because my dad and mother both just loved this fella. So I wasn't about to expose him. And I guess I'd have to say, for me, I fell into this huge depression and I had to decide if I wanted to live or not.
Ooh.
And the reason for that is because I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
I had my spiritual life and I believed. I thought, well, I've been a good mom. I've been a good daughter. I've been a good wife. I've been a good friend. I've Mrs. Goody, but I've been all those things. And why would God not take me out of this or move me forward or something?
Right.
I didn't realize that in his own way, he was working behind the scenes. And what happened is my sister happened to phone me and said, Diana, I think I know what's wrong with members of our family. I won't mention members of our family. And I said, yes, do you have an idea? And she said, yes, I think alcohol is the big factor. And I said, but what do we do? What do we do about it? I don't want to be a nagging wife. I want to be the perfect wife, right?
Sure.
So anyway, she introduced me to a 12-step program for the families of alcoholics. And I drove from Chesley to Sudbury. I don't know how far that is, about 300 miles to go to a meeting. That's how desperate I was.
Wow.
Because I wanted to save what we had. I wanted to save what we started off with. I wanted it to come back, and it wasn't coming back. And anyway, I went, and that lady that gave the talk that night told my story. So I felt, oh boy, it's going to be okay. I don't know of any programs around, but I'll find one. But then not everybody wants to go to that effort. They're tired. They're sick and tired of it all. And they just, as you said, they throw in the towel. And why didn't I? Well, sometimes I don't know. I don't know your answer. Why didn't I? But I just really love my husband, and I just wanted things to go.
If I was a good listener, I would say that your faith, I think the reason why it didn't end is, that there was a higher power working in your guys' in your guys' favor, or working behind the scenes to continue to evolve what has been a very interesting road for you guys of 57 years, as you said earlier. And when we talk about these types of your selfishness, John, you having, how many kids did you have, or do you have just the one?
No, we have three, but that time we just had one. And we'll get to that later in the conversation, I'm sure. But Diana had, I was always manipulating, and it's alcoholics do. Mm-hmm. And she had a lawyer friend come and visit us, and he suggested because I wasn't giving her any money, I was just a mess, because I had to look after my problem, my addiction, and my gambling, and my. So he suggested that we go to, because Diana was finished, and that's why she had the lawyer there to get the separation going. And so he suggested marriage encounter or marriage counseling. And I thought, oh, gee, well, I better do it. I said, I'll even get the counselor myself, anything to keep this thing afloat, because I didn't want to separate, because I didn't think I could afford it. And I was afraid, ashamed of my boss, who I had a lot of respect for, would wouldn't think very highly of me if I pulled that one off. So I didn't get the marriage counselor, but Diane, of course, good old Diana, she got the marriage and counselor, and off we go. It was over 100 miles one way. Wow. And I grumbled all the way, and it was a doctor and his wife. They're both doctors. So Diana talked to the lady doctor, and I talked to the man, and I just laid it out, Diana's always on my case. I can't do anything, and she's the blah, 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 blah. She was nagging, blame. So anyway, I laid it all out there. It's the first time I'd really told anybody anything. So when we came back together, they said, well, Mr. and Mrs. Snowden, and they had conferred, we think you'd be best to separate. Well,
wow.
I got my back up and I said, listen, I didn't drive 200 miles to hear I should separate. I can do that myself at home. I don't need to come down here to have you tell me that. So I came here for some help. So let's get some help.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was the beginning. You see, there's a scripture that says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And you mentioned there's things going on behind the scenes and there was a higher power. Well, the higher power is working through her and the other power is working through me. There was that conflict, hence the 7-year war. But we did learn some techniques, which we help marriages with people with troubles. We take them through these steps, but one was communication. And they gave us a big stop sign, and each side of a stop sign, and that was the start. Put that on your fridge, and every time you decide to get going, you stop and use what they call the no blame method, where I feel upset when you do. Instead of blaming the person, you say what's happening with you, but you're getting the message across. So we got in the car and I said, I feel upset that they told us to separate. So we had a laugh about that because that's I used the I feel method, you see. I feel upset when they told us to separate. And we laughed. And that was the first time we'd laughed together in a long time.
And we went home and made a stop sign. We were looking for it the other day because we carried it everywhere we've moved, and we've moved a lot of places. But that's really, people are surprised when you tell them it's that simple. You just have to stop if you want to. Like you get a choice. You get a choice for everything you're doing out there or not doing. But John made a choice at that time, and I did too. And then we went along for a while as the road goes up and down, illusion, disillusion. It's not working the way I think it should, not. And I talked to some friends at my church, and this beautiful couple had gone to a program called Marriage Encounter. And I said, what is Marriage Encounters? When the couples come together and they spend time talking, but you don't tell anybody else what you're saying. There's a presenter and that sort of thing. Sure. Anyway, I said, gee, that sounds, of course, I was always trying to find something, right, to make it better. And I thought, I'll tell John about this. He'll be really excited.
I encouraged with her cousin, and the subject come up because they had been to one, and I thought, gee, here we go. So I shut up and deal, let's get on with the game. And then because of our communication buildup, we used to sit out in the back in May and talk, very superficial things, none of the deep stuff. And our anniversary was coming up on August the 26th, and Diana says, as women do, I wouldn't want to say they manipulate, but there's a little that goes on. She says, all I want for our anniversary is to go on this Marriage Encounter weekend. Yeah, well, I ran that through the computer here, and it was only $10 to register, and it wasn't till November.
Right.
So I thought $10, that takes care of the anniversary present. And it's not till November. That's a long way away.
Sure.
Surely there'll be a blizzard or something in November. I won't have to worry about going anyway. So I'll just put that on the back burner. It was always manipulation, selfishness, me.
Yeah.
And but November came early that year. So I got, So we get in the car, we're going to Hamlin's, 2 or 3 hours drive. And I started tonguing her all the way. I don't want to go to this. And this better be good. And you wrote me into this. And finally we stopped about an hour away and had supper. And Diana said, John, reminds me of that commercial, John, if you're going to keep on like this, we can turn around and go back home. Forget about it. So I ran that through the computer. Well, if I don't go, I'm going to pay for this. So, okay, on we go. And we get there, and it was big stone walls,
Yeah.
and a gate, an iron gate. And I thought, oh, geez, if they ever get me in there, I'll never get out. Here was a guy parked his car right next to the exit. I said, no, there's somebody that's really thinking.
Right.
He's going to break loose. And so I had to go through, and then immediately started looking around the place for a TV to see if the hockey game would be on that night. And tomorrow's the NFL. I got to watch the football games, but I couldn't find a TV anywhere. So I decided I'd have to put up with this.
When you talk about these marriage encounters, I know that there are churches around the States, even one that I've attended, where they do a marriage encounter. They do a men's encounter. So for those who may be interested in looking for some type of help in those regards, just look for your local church, and some of them will have these types of places. A church that I've frequently have gone to in Puyallup has a lot of these types of things called it's Motion Church, for those who are interested in like a marriage encounter like you guys have. And not that John wanted to go, but now, was this through a church? Was your guys through a church? Yeah.
It was through the Catholic Church.
And very forward thinking for the Catholics, because a lot of modern Christian church like Emotion are doing these types of things now. And they're like yearly, and sometimes I think some churches may do them twice a year, but I know that for fellowship reasons, I know that they'll do like a men's encounter, a women's encounter, a marriage encounter, and then I've done like couples retreats and things of that nature. It's just, to me, listening to your guys' story, as as we know that Diana is probably my favorite person, but John, I think I've learned so much from you about like listening to your humility of saying, look, I was selfish, as you share your story with us. It's humbling to listen to another man out here share his imperfections in life, because let's face it, society, regardless on where we are in general, guys have typically tough guy. Men don't cry. I'll be the first to tell you, I have, my daughter asked me yesterday, she's like, Dad, when was the last time you cried? And I told her it was like, it was last Saturday. I was listening to some music. It made me think of my aunt who recently just passed away at a very young age. And I told her, she's like, and she hugged me and she was like, wow, that's so sad that you were by yourself and you were crying. I was like, I was grieving, for our family member. John, when did you realize in your encounter, were you like, did you enjoy any of that, or did you learn anything from that experience when you were going through that encounter, that couple's encounter?
Sorry.
Now we're getting to the good part.
Good. This is all good, by the way. It's just it's
the best part. Well, through the weekend, it was very seldom did we have to share anything with the rest of the group. It was all between us.
Right.
But the first night, we'd like to, as a point of introduction, just tell who you are and say something nice about your spouse. So guess who gets to go first? Yours truly. Well, nice. So I said, Diana, she's just a wonderful person, a great wife, loving, she hugs others, she does this, and you can tell where you were at there.
Oh, well, I wondered who he was talking about, quite frankly, really, because he had never expressed these words for a long, long time. So I was not expecting all this positivity that he came up with. And he just, nobody else would ever do in his whole life, and I thought, oh, shoot, what am I going to say? Because I don't feel that way after just having had that stop at the restaurant. and listened to him chew away, I thought, I don't know what to say. So I really don't remember a thing I said. He'll have to remember what I said. I just, he was teacher and he was clever. And I mean, all the things that I do appreciate in him is all I could say. But as far as him, the person, to be with me, the person, I couldn't. I'm not a hypocrite. I just can't. And I just couldn't put it out there. I know some people can, but I can't. I won't say anything bad.
Sure.
Anything bad, but I just couldn't say, oh, he's just such a loving person, for all I know.
It's interesting when you say that, because I think that in most relationships, when we talk about relationships, being in one, maybe you're not in one right now, keeping your circle tight in regards to the things that may, the imperfections of a person, or like someone saying, oh my gosh, Mario, you snore at night, or I don't like going to somebody like a friend, a best friend, and then confiding in them in regards to, John or Mario's imperfections. I find those to be not great qualities, because then the best friend of our significant other will start to have a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, because they have been debriefed some maybe not some great things about us, and then it spirals out. I mean, and not all and maybe this is another thing that I'm learning about you two as a couple, that maybe, Diana, you were protecting the relationship this entire time, to protect, from people thinking that you're with a bad person, which John is not. Or John, you're not a bad person. You just had some bad traits that needed to be worked through.
Well, as I said, this is the best part, because as the weekend progressed, Diana and I had to write we were given questions and listen to presentations, and I thought, boy, those people are really something. They're admitting this and they're admitting that. As a matter of fact, the first lady admitted being an alcoholic. I thought, oh, gee, right in front of all these people. So anyway, this went on. We kept going back and forth, various topics, and finally, it's called the big one, was an hour and a half. And we had a list of questions to go through. And so Diana was in the main lounge, and I was in our cabin. And I was to read and answer these questions, and she was doing the same there. Anyway, I was started reading these questions, and questions like, who's keeping your family apart? Who's keeping your family from God? Who's not looking after the responsibilities? And I'm reading this stuff, and I'd been softened up because it was a spiritual experience weekend. And I had heard the parable of the sower, which is a big one for me. Anyway, I was reading these things, and finally I realized that it was me that was the problem. And it was the fact I wasn't following God's plan for marriage, which was unity. And I just had an overwhelming sense of guilt and shame. So I got down on my knees at the side of the bed, and I used to make a joke in the hockey dressing room. Guys, well, he's at church. Oh, I don't go to church. I just get a loaf of bread and a bottle of wine and watch Rex Humbard on TV. Laugh.
Right.
But I did that, and I remember listening to them. So I knew what to say, and I knew what they wanted, and I got on my knees, and I said, Lord, I'm sorry for keeping you out of my life for so long. I'm sorry. Forgive me and come into my life and do with me whatever you want. Well, I actually felt the garbage leave me. I felt the swearing leave me. I felt the lying. I was a liar, as you can gather from what I've been saying. A gambler. I felt all that stuff leave me. And it was like I had the St. Paul experience. For those that don't know, he was on the road to Damascus to kill Christians, and Christ appeared to him, knocked him off his horse.
Right.
Now, I wasn't on a horse, but I had that overwhelming sense of release. And I got up and I looked out the window, and I could actually see inside trees. I could, like the cells, even the rocks looked like they were alive. And a squirrel came down in the tree, and it was in the middle of November. And I thought, this is unusual. But everything was just, you never remember those viewfinders you used to look through? And and it was three-dimensional. It was just like it was alive. Yeah. Well, that's how everything looked out that window. And I got to tell somebody about this. I don't know what it is, but something's going on here. And the answer I got in my mind was, sit down and finish answering the questions. So I did. And it wasn't when the time was up, Diana was to come and meet me, and we were exchange our books and read what we have written.
Yeah. So
Diana comes to the door, and you can take it from there.
Well, I didn't know what was going on in him and what he was writing, but I was agreeing with him. No, who's keeping the family from God and who's this and that. It's not really a blame game, but if that's who it is, you can't pretend it isn't. And so I would answer, but I'd say, but maybe things will be better. I'd always conclude my answer with, maybe things will get better. Maybe God, you know what's in store. Maybe you'll make it better. So when I walked into the room, I remember saying to John, there was like a huge aura around him. For people who don't know what an aura is, it's a kind of a bursting of a sunlight that comes all over him from head to toe. And I'm looking at him, I think, what happened here? What happened here? And I walked into the room a little bit further, and I was quite astonished as to what I said, well, tell me what's going on, because I wasn't confused. I was just taken aback by what I saw in him.
Yeah.
And so then he said, well, here's my papers, and he handed them to me, and I began to read them. Well, of course, I began to weep, and I'm not a crybaby. Some people can cry at the drop of a hat. I don't. In my profession, I learned you can't. So I think since I was little, I learned I cannot cry. But I really was brought to tears when I saw that. And I went, oh, my goodness, there's hope for us after all. There's hope for us after all. I couldn't, So then John explained a little bit further, and we left, kind of singing and happy. And I know it doesn't happen to other couples that take these weekends. I know that. But you're still changed because you had a chance to look inside yourself and look inside your spouse with a different set of eyes. And I was so hoping for this change, but coming to the end of my little line that it wasn't going to change. But he wanted to go to church. He wanted to take our daughter to church. She was about 10 or 11 at that point. And I had always hid his drinking episodes and everything from her. So she may have noticed it along the way, but I just never let on. I wasn't into that. I know people do that, one to the other spouse. But I can tell you right now, don't do it, because it's not the children's fault that we can't get along. It
is 100%. And I believe this to be, for those who may be divorced, it is something that is not great for the kids. It doesn't boast well for your kids. I mean, speaking someone who has spent more time divorced than I was married. I will say this: put your kids first. Always put your kids first. And it will pay dividends, period. End of discussion. You may not love or be friends with your ex spouse or whoever that might be. Maybe it's a relationship that did not work out. But look, at the end of the day, there was a point in time when you two came together to be lovers and to have these children. And that's the common ground that you both have. You both love your children. And I know that to be the case. And so as I can share from my own personal experiences, love your kids. It will pay dividends. And here we are at 16 years old. I love her dearly. I mean, she definitely is. She keeps me in line. I was like, man, this girl runs the house more than I run the house. But it is so true. I mean, you don't want to talk bad about their parent, because they unconditionally love us, right? That is a great thing that you were able to foresee, that and to be able to project it and to share that now with your experience over the years. And I can attest, as a younger, someone younger, to say that, yeah, I've been divorced for such a long time, but I would never talk bad about my ex-wife. It's not good for the kids. And
No.
they love us. Our kids, your kids love both their parents unconditionally. So I'm glad you said that and brought that up.
Thank you. Yeah, we can divorce the spouse, but we can't divorce the children.
That is so true. And
Yeah.
And so you leave the couples retreat, this couples encounter, and mind you, you guys are on like cloud 7, right? You guys are on a cloud 9. You guys are, excited about the journey in life. How do you guys continue through, and where do things jump back? Okay, so it's let's just call this surface level, like, fix it, John and Diana. Like, okay, so you went to the marriage counseling, and maybe in your mind you're like, okay, we got this now. But did you really?
Oh, well, yeah, we were off into illusion again.
Illusion, yeah.
Yeah, back to the basic law of life. So everything's going to be. I just loved everybody. I had to see. We believe as Christians that we're three-dimensional beings. We're physical. We have a soul, and we have a spirit.
Right.
And when you do that, make that move, people, you've seen them on TV. Just say, Jesus, come into my heart. Well, that is true. That's what I learned from Rex Hembard. And that's what I did. And that's what happened. And so there's a throne inside. We call it the heart. Mm-hmm. And John had been on the throne for years. Well, when I made that commitment, Jesus was on the throne. And as long as he's on the throne and I'm listening to him, and now it's second nature. But anyway, I just loved everybody. Oh, it was just such a thing. And I had to tell everybody, and I was blabbing all over the place. And, I got to write a book about this. And tell everybody. And I was going to call it, Oh My God. And so I'm telling Diana, and she said, well, you can't really tell that story without me being involved.
Right.
So that evolved into, and the two shall become as one. That's because that's what happened. And off we went. Wrote the book. We were talking, or this and that and the other.
We became a couple for Marriage Encounter.
Yeah, we became a couple with Marriage Encounter, and spent 3 or 4 years doing that. And so as long as Jesus was on the throne, and that was working fine. But I still hadn't dealt with the alcohol thing yet. Until one morning, I'd been up all night drinking and gone to bed about 7 a.m. and kept Diana up till 4, dancing to country and Western music, which I didn't even like, until when I woke up, I was out on the floor listening to Freddie Fender. This was anyway. I went to bed at 9 o'clock. About there, I just sat up bolt right up in bed. I didn't hear an audible voice, but as I said, the Spirit is in us, and He talks to us. We're supposed to listen like those dressage horses. You never see any action, but there's slight movements of the knees and a little twitch of the reins, and the horse responds. That's how we're supposed to act as Christians if Jesus is on the throne.
Right.
Anyway, I heard this voice, John. I didn't hear a voice. The thought in my mind, how do you expect to, we're in the middle of writing a book at that. How am I, you expecting to do the things you want to do? And you've got this problem. You're an alcoholic. And Satan's going to use that against you. So I woke Diana up. I said, Diana, guess what? I'm an alcoholic. And she looked at me. That look is about time. And I said, who's that guy in AA that you used to hang around with his wife? So she gave me his name. I called him up and said, guess what? I'm an alcoholic. When's your next meeting? He said, well, tomorrow morning. I said, I'll be there. He said, do you want me to pick up? No, I'll be there. I called my sister, Marilyn, in Toronto, who had trouble with alcohol. I said, guess what, Marilyn? I'm an alcoholic. And that's your problem, too. Well, I'm going to a meeting tomorrow morning. Why don't you come up and we'll go? I will, she said. Oh, so then I called my brother-in-law. I said, guess what? I'm an alcoholic. And that's your problem too. So he wasn't near as happy about his Marilyn.
Most people who are alcoholics don't want to be told that they are alcoholics.
Oh, so I went through that how many years. So anyway, I went and I sit in they put you right at the corner so you can hear how you do this thing. You see what you're talking. And I'm sitting there just bouncing in my chair. I can't wait to tell them I met Jesus a couple of years ago, and yesterday morning I got the word, and here I am, and I'm just going on, and then they looked at me. Where did that guy come from?
Yeah.
So that was back into the illusion, or the illusion, and 5 years sober. And I say sober.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was dry.
Yeah.
And I had what's called a dry drunk. And I started putting John back. I was watching my son, who was about 2.5 at the time, and he was a little hellion. And I'm looking at him, and he was throwing temper tantrums, slamming doors. And I looked, that's what I'm doing. I'm acting like that. Mm-hmm. So I knew something was wrong. And the long story short, I went into a 28-day program for alcoholics, and I heard a whole lot of stuff that I needed to hear. One was, if you started drinking at 13, you're probably 8. You regress. Your emotional development stops right there. And not only that, but it regresses, and that's what was happening to me. So I'm off again, another illusion. Now I got another message. I got this all figured out now. And 3 years later, we separated. So here we have written a book on how to guaranteed way. It says right here, guaranteed to solve your marriage problems, and we're separated. Well, back into the disillusion. And this was, I'd stop at a gas station. Somebody come up and say, knew who I was. Oh, you wrote that book. And I said, yeah, I did. And can I have one? I just happen to have some in the trunk. So I'd write in their book, don't let my present circumstances belie the truth that lies in this book. And it was through the book that we had to get back because the truth was there. Yeah. I had kicked Jesus off the throne, and I sat back down. It's like that joke about the cats, before God, and I don't need to go into all that, but the cat says to God, you're sitting on my chair. And this is what happened. I went back to being the selfish John. And I didn't like it. So we were separated for 5 years.
Wow.
And neither one of us had anybody else, didn't want anybody else.
Yeah.
But Diana couldn't, and she had a dream. That's another book we've written about miracles and dreams. And she wrote this, had this dream that she didn't have to live this way. And we decided to part, which we did for 5 years.
And when you guys were apart for 5 years, how many kids did you have at that point in time?
Oh, we had 3 children.
Okay.
Right after the marriage encounter, after about a year, I had 2 kids in a row, 2 little boys. And our daughter would be 12 or turning 12. So it was an interesting time. I was a lot older, and I used to say I had 2 kids in a carriage. And it was another responsibility. It was hard for John to be responsible to children. He was a teacher, did great things in his classroom. It was hard for him to apply it at home. And I understood that. And I use that slogan often. I let John be John. Just let me be me. And then we're okay. If I don't let him be him, then I'm trying to change him, right? And you can't change anybody but yourself. And so for me, I guess I had to learn to be, this is the way I am. This is what I do. I'm an extrovert. I love doing this. I love doing that. And somewhere along the way, he had to accept that happening. Now, when I actually got very ill and I thought I was going to die. So the short version. And a friend introduced me to the homeopath, I guess. And she worked with me she started working with me in about March. And that's when I thought I was not going to make it. And in May, again, I had this dream. I was sitting on my rocking chair, had the 2 boys that were upstairs sleeping, my daughter was, and I said, Lord, I don't know what to do. I won't need a house if I don't live, so he can have all this. It doesn't mean anything to me. What I wanted was the relationship that we had once, and it's gone again. It's left. And then what I felt I heard in my spirit was call John. And I thought, it's 10 o'clock at night. What? I'm going to call John? Yes. I said, okay. What'll I say? And it was, I will teach you and tell you what to say. So I phoned him. It's 10 o'clock at night. And he said, hello, who is this? This is not Diana. And I said, yes, it is. John, I've decided you can come back home. And I've got 20 things written on a piece of paper that you need to follow. And you have to give me your answer by Friday. And he said, what? Diana, is this really you? Is this a joke? And I went, no. But I didn't tell him I was ill. I didn't want that to be part of his reason. And so, and I guess I could tell that part too. He shows up Thursday, which would John, right? I got to be the boss. I got to do it my way. Right. He showed up Thursday evening. The kids were all in bed. And my cat, I had a beautiful cat. Her name was Secret. And she had nothing to do with John the whole 5 years. We got her when she was itty bitty. And he came in the house and was at the door, just like when he dropped the kids off from time to time. She never went near him. This night, she ran right over to him and went over on her back, a sign of submission for cats, right?
Right.
And he picked her up and she purred and purred and purred. I thought, oh, you what did they call her? Anyway, she was a traitor. Yeah, she was a traitor. Anyway, John said, well, I'll tell you what, I don't think I can do all this. I really don't. But most of it was about take the kids to church, to hockey, help do the grass, help around the house, do the dishes, that sort of thing. Be with the children. It wasn't anything. I didn't ask for anything. And I don't have my halo on. No. I just didn't. I wanted it for our life, and I wasn't going to be here, right? The way the prognosis was, I wasn't going to be there. So what happened was he hugged her, and that cat wouldn't let him go. I just thought, and then I thought, well, that's what you wanted. You wanted this. So the next day, we decided John would come home the 1st of July. It was somewhere in June, but just before my birthday. Mm-hmm. And we went to the restaurant for my birthday, the 2 children and myself. My daughter was away in college by then, at university. And I said, we're sitting at the table, and John said, well, we have some news for you, boys. And the youngest one, Jolie, says, oh, you guys are getting back together. Oh, that's great, Mom and Dad. Like, we never said a word. Sure. But he was very intuitive.
And most kids are. They are.
Yes.
They know what's going on. They vastly know what's going on.
Yeah. So he came back home, and I kept taking my supplements or whatever. It's a Chinese program, and I just took it faithfully, and I started to get better, and all the symptoms that I had, like all the physical symptoms you can think of, shut down. I started to get better. So it was Christmas time, and John said, "Well, you look like you're better," and I hadn't told him up to that point that I had been sick.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I didn't want that to be a reason for him to come home.
Sure.
And I said, "Well, you're here. You might as well stay." I'm still protecting myself because I'd been hurt before, and and we just somehow went on in our life again. We had gone through the disillusion, and now the joy was back, and away we went again for another period of time.
Yeah, it's very cyclical.
Yeah.
We live in Muskoka, so we have the 4 seasons, and so you have the nice illusion of spring and summer, and then winter hits. There's the disillusion, but the joy comes in the spring when everything gets green again and
renews the renewal of life. Yeah,
it's like Jesus used the example of a kernel of wheat. It falls to the ground and it goes into the ground, and then it dies and it rots. But from that period of time, up comes the new, and it's 100-fold. Yeah. There's more than the one kernel. So this is so basic. It's why it's called the basic law of life. And we went through the 3 cycles, and we had another whack when our son committed suicide, and he hung himself.
Oof.
And that was 19. Well, that was 6 years ago in August next year, 25. And you alluded to in your introduction that, if we didn't have the relationship, and Diana likes to use the expression that Diana, she often says, people call her Diane. She said, "No, Diana, like the princess." And Princess Diana was interviewed on TV, and that was blew up the whole network. When she was asked what the problem was, she says, "Well, there's 3 people in this marriage. It's a bit crowded."
Yeah.
And the third person was Camilla. And we believe there should be 3 people in the marriage too, but the third person is Jesus.
The Holy Spirit. Yeah.
That's what saved our marriage, and that's what keeps us going. And of course, I give all the credit to Diana, because it was her. And I look back in my life, and why her? Why did I see her across the crowd? Why did she end up in front of me in a Paul Jones dance? Why did she get to be Miss Muskoka? And then I had to make my move. So I walked up to her locker and told her I loved her, and walked away. Like, I had to make my move, and I did, and it just kept going, but we're still going. And it was that spiritual power, and that changed when I got on my knees that day. Even though I picked Jesus off the throne and jumped on myself, he
was always there for you.
Oh, he says, "I'll never leave you or forsake you. Fear not." Yeah. All this garbage that's going on in the world today, I don't give a hoot about that. I know what's going on because I read the Word, and the Word spells it all out.
For those who may, in your guys' case, I want to bring this to the attention. If you have thoughts or have had any issues in regards to negative thoughts of suicide, there is a suicide prevention hotline. You can text or call 988 here in the States. It is tragic, because I know that even for men's health, men's mental health is a big thing that doesn't get discussed here in the States. And I know that there is now a men's mental awareness. And for those who may have that macho mentality, look, we want to bring it to the forefront to make sure that we share the information, the knowledge that is available to those who may need it. Maybe you don't. I grew up in the early 90s, 80s and 90s. And people make fun of me because I don't take over the counter medicine unless I'm like really bad. And sometimes people are too tough and too proud, but
Right.
if in your guys' case, if or anybody who may have suicide thoughts, there is a prevention hotline that you were able to text. It's free. It's 988 if you need that. Again, our guest John and Diana, it's that tragic piece in your guys' life, as I said earlier, and you were just mentioning, John, that if you guys weren't together, you don't think you would be back together. And in your guys' journey through what has been the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the illusion, the disillusion, the stop sign, something that I think I will take away from spending this time with you guys is just be open-minded, not to quickly judge, to understand others. Someone who has friends that are still married, try to be always be a good listener, always advocate marriage. I'm not one who is going to promote divorce. I don't want to be someone's homewrecker in regards to, and when I say homewrecker, I'm more of the like to dissolve a marriage. I'm going to be one to continue to promote the marriage, seek counseling. This I would have to say is probably one of the most intriguing interviews I've ever done in the 4 years that I've done this radio podcast. I just it is so neat to listen to your guys' story that's not perfect, but is perfect in so many different ways, on how the love that you can see. If you're not watching, you can go to the onairmario.com to watch the show, or watch the video of this show, to see the love that you guys have for each other, the rock that you are, Diana, to keep this young buck in shape, keep him the macho, to protect what is your guys' special little thing from that one night. It shows. You can see right here that you two, and even listening to you guys share your story, how much love, how much courtesy you guys have for each other, the ups and downs, the ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly, having those abilities to share that with somebody else, to put pen to paper in books that you guys have. I'd love for you guys to share that. We'll definitely post those links. I will post those links in the podcast, so that if people are interested in downloading or purchasing your books, they're available, I'm assuming, somewhere, right? Besides the back of your vehicle, right, John? I mean,
Yeah, the one.
We're just this is the original hardcover book that we wrote many years ago.
Okay.
And the two shall become as one. We're just in the process of having it put on Amazon in three forms: paperback, audio, and what's the one you read?
Ebook.
Ebook. Yeah.
I'm not very techy.
We didn't get to the experiences that we've had with miracles, but there's this book, Miracles and Dreams and Everyday Miracles. A lot of we've had, aside from the miracles we've talked about today, we've had others of healings and other people's stories. We've had miracles, and it's we believe very much in miracles and dreams. Diana is a dreamer. Every time she says, "I had a dream," first thing I ask her is,
"Was it in color?"
If it's in color, stuff has come true. Oh yeah, it comes true, and it's interesting. You have a paranormal aspect to your podcast, I believe.
Yeah.
And some people call it paranormal. I call it supernatural. And we have all kinds of evidences of big and little things that, well, this us being here is as a result of a dream, and it's here we are.
Well, I mean, to listen to you both, it warms my heart. I hope that, and I joke all the time. I'm like, I'm never gonna find somebody, but
Oh,
I think listening to you two both, to continue to, I'm not searching, but I continue to path, and whatever that might be, eventually the things will align correctly. Someone who has faith and spiritual, for myself, I don't judge others, and whatever someone else does in their lane is their lane. I just stick to my lane, drive down the road of life, and try to do good for others if I can. You know, and I think the one thing that I've learned today is that nothing's perfect,
no.
and I think that in life, having some type of checks and balances, you're gonna learn from, and listening. Stop, listen, and remember that. Something that I think I've learned here is get into the dirt, start digging past that surface level. Like John was saying, a lot of stuff you think you kind of mask and fix, the illusion, as you were saying earlier, of like, oh yeah, okay, we did the, for maybe a couples out there listening, okay, yeah, we did the couples retreat, or
Counseling.
yeah, and we did the counseling and everything's great, but really, did you really dig down deep? Did you get into the weeds? Did you pull out those weeds so they don't come back? I'm not saying that, I'm not saying everything's perfect, but go ahead, John.
Oh, that's you got to get into the weeds and get into the mud, and we didn't get into a lot of the mud, but that was another dream that came true, and actually rattled my chains and led to not a confrontation, a resolution of my infidelity, and that was quite a part. We just started to write the book, and I quit my job, and then and she got this dream, and I knew I had to come clean, and I did, and
Isn't it interesting, Diana, that I think something that I've learned about people who, when infidelity plays into a relationship, or you hear about it, and people are like, oh, I think in general, when people, oh, I was cheated on, and they're like, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. Let's remember, ladies and gentlemen, and people who are listening and maybe watching, it's not you, it's the other person. It's like John was still not healed, fixed, and he still hadn't got through those weeds to figure out, uh,
Right.
you know, the
Well,
eye.
as a woman, for
Yeah,
me, to me, it's the greatest betrayal
yeah,
for me. Now, maybe other people don't think that way, but for me, it was the greatest betrayal. And maybe it's because I had those, I said to you earlier, I was a good wife, a good mother, a good
right.
daughter. And how could you do this to me? But I've come to learn, as I learned to forgive. That was the big issue. You have to forgive, or we won't be here. We wouldn't be here today if I didn't. And again, that doesn't make me perfect or my halo really shiny, but it does say I got a choice. I got a choice to move forward. Now, if this keeps happening time and time and time again, okay, now you've got an issue. And
Sure.
I'm not judging like you said, but it's the greatest betrayal. But for me, the worst that ever happened to me in my life was when my son took his own life. Because there's a lot of people out there fighting to live.
Yeah.
And he was just a very awesome. Well, all my children are awesome. They all have something really special about them. But that to me was the worst thing that could have happened. And you brought up that if we weren't together, well, it would be in August, if I can just permit me. it was in August when I began seeing John and I are on a train track again. We're there, we're doing things, but there's something missing, and I don't know what it is. And I began to pray in August of the year before he died. So it would be 2018. And I began to pray and say, please change, God, can you change this? Can you bring it back? Because we had such a great love 2-3 times in our life. Remember, the illusion, disillusion kept happening. Bring it back. Please bring it back. It's really important. And it would be in December of that same year, John started doing things that showed me he was back.
Yeah.
He was back in the picture doing things like even saying, well, I'm having a cup of tea. Would you like one? Or would you like something else? Or how about cheese and crackers? And I'm going, oh, yeah, okay. Or I'll make supper tonight. What? Because he doesn't like to cook. So that leaves me, I'm the cook. So when the cook goes down, we're in trouble. But here he's saying all these things, and I didn't question it. I just kept saying, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so when May came around and the loss of Joel hit us, we were in perfect union at that particular time. And I know a lot of friends, they break up or they blame the husband, they blame the wife. You should have done this and you could have done that. Well, yes. And a lot of things, but I didn't. I blame myself. I said, my fault. This boy did this. It's my fault. But that's what moms do, I think. I don't know about men because I'm not a man, but moms say there's something more I could have done. I should have seen it.
I did that.
And yet I'd had the dream. I had the dream 2 nights before, but I thought it was my mother who was very ill, that's what was happening. I knew something was going to happen. I couldn't see just a cloud. And so I thought, oh, it's my mom. She's on oxygen. She's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And he came to visit us. I never, ever thought for a minute. So as you can imagine, it was a terrible, terrible surprise. But again, I just say, if there's any mother out there, it isn't your fault. Just as you said, Mario, people make these choices. And he made a choice that certainly wasn't our choice. And we can't bring him back. But I know from my own experience, just as a mom, you as a mom, you have to take time to grieve. Just as I grieved the loss of my marriage when John and I broke up, I grieved the loss of this little boy. And he's just little to me. Of course, he's 35, but he was little to me. And you have to heal in your own time. Don't let anybody tell you, well, you should be able to move on by now. No. Don't even listen to them. Cross them off your Christmas list. Like, no, you don't want those people. You need someone who will listen to you if you have to listen or tell them. And it's hard to talk. And I would say it took me, I was in my 4th year of his loss before I could use his name. Because I told you, I'm not a crier, but I couldn't use his name and I'd feel the teardrops coming. So I switched the subject or say my younger son or, that sort of thing. So your life has been changed forever with a death, no matter whose it is. But when it's your baby, there's no way that you need to. You can choose to, but there's no way you need to keep blaming yourself because the past is the past. Whatever you didn't do as a mom or dad, you didn't do, and it's over. But we have to believe that we will be restored and help someone else. Like people come to me all the time. Well, I couldn't have talked to them 4 years ago. I couldn't have. So I'm glad they didn't show up. It's just the last year and a half. How do you handle it, Diana? How do you do this? Why are you still doing things? Like, why are you going out and helping other people? But you get restored by helping other people. And we got restored by helping other couples. We're not counselors. We don't have a PhD in anything for counseling.
In life.
We just love. Yeah. I have a PhD in love and life. And thank you.
Listening to you share about this tragic loss of your son, it's heartbreaking, because as a parent, I think we all are like, even to this day, it's like I am more aware of what goes on with my daughter, and making sure that, I mean, there's so many different ways, and this, like, we want to protect all of us want to protect our kids. Again, um, I mean, that's our nature as parents. We want to protect. I mean, that's what we're here to do. We're like, no one's going to hurt our babies. And in your tragic loss, you sharing your story about this will help others in their grieving processes, for them to know that what you've shared today isn't easy. It's not. It gives them a little bit of hope, and it gives them an avenue to say it's okay to heal in your time, not when
Yeah.
some professional tells you it's okay. Thank you for sharing that you're able to say no when you're ready. When I'm ready, as you said, then I was able to share that, and you wouldn't be here today if you weren't here to share that, and to be able to share that is tremendous, because think of everyone you're helping, the people you've touched already, but the more people that you're able to touch with your words, and being able to be human, and to say, look, I mean, life's not perfect, but man, this loss, I'm going to honor my son. I'm going to do things to make aware of such a tragic situation. Again, if you're someone who is needing of help and have had suicidal thoughts, here in the States, you can call or text 988 for the suicide crisis hotline. Again, John and Diana, what an honor to have you guys come to hang out with us. Before we leave for this, before we leave today, is there anything you guys would like to finish wrapping up, or just kind of summarize before we head out?
Well, I don't know your audience, and it doesn't matter. The truth is still the truth. And Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light. No one comes to the Father but through me. That's what changed my life all those years ago at Marriage Encounter, when I made that decision and it stuck. The parable of the sower is, the sower went out and sowed some seeds. Some grew up fast and the sun scorched them, and some landed on the path and the birds came up and eat it. But some fell in good soil and it grew to produce 30, 50, 100-fold. And when we came out of the Marriage Encounter weekend, we stopped at a stoplight. I'll never forget, it was Clapperson's Corners, just north of Hamilton. And I looked at Diana, the light was red. I said, I hope I'm the good dirt that I will produce 100-fold. And that led us on the trail. And it's, as I said, I kicked him off the throne, and but he got back on. I smartened up, and every time I smartened up, he got back on. And he's not abusive. He's a gentleman, and he loves us all. And I encourage everyone to take a look at that process of the life. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about a relationship with what I call my Savior, and it has an eternal aspect to it that's probably more important than anything we've talked about today. And just investigate that.
It's so good that you say that, as we as we get close to Christmas here in the States.
Yeah.
I mean, as this show airs right now on the radio, we are just a couple days away from wrapping up. Well, Christmas will be here, and so show runs on the weekend. So as we get ready to celebrate Christmas and spend time with family, and remember, I know the hustle and bustle, it's in the middle of the week for most of us. Well, it's in the middle of the week, but to be able to take time to slow down, to have that family time with our family. And I know there's last minute gifts that need to be bought, and last minute needs at the grocery store, the as everyone makes fun of me for saying I'm a Costco shopper, and
Oh,
it's as you endure going to these different types of things, slow down, put on,
mhm.
slow down, enjoy life a little bit, because once we leave this physical plane, and things, however if it's eternal life, if it's, if for those who may not believe, and they think that this is it, then that's it. You only got one life to live. I'm not talking
Yeah.
the soap opera, but we're talking for those who believe that this is it, that for those that are maybe atheists, and don't believe in certain things, and enjoy life. Be kind to others during this holiday season. Maybe someone's going through something that may be tumultuous. Maybe they're in a bad relationship. Maybe they had a bad day at work. Just smile. It goes
Mm.
a long way. It really does. Again, our guest, John and Diana, it's been an honor to have you guys come to hang out with us as we vastly approach the Christmas time. What a great to be able to spend this time with you guys, to share your spiritual relationship on how you got to where you're at, this journey in life. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's something that I will take with me forever.
Hmm.
You can't put a price on that kind of, to be able to have a conversation like this with somebody. People pay thousands of dollars to sit in a counseling session, and they may not be able to afford it. But I will say, listening to you guys this evening has been a new awakening for me. I feel just great. Even though I may not be with somebody, I just feel that
Mm.
much more spiritually touched. So I appreciate and I thank you for that. I mean, to me, that thank you for sharing that with me. It's been uh, very different, because I definitely don't always share a lot on the show, but it's definitely spiritually
Yeah.
touching me that way. So thank you very much for your guys' time this evening. And I will say this, this has to be one of the longest interviews I've ever done. So which has been just great on how this is all. It's just been so fantastic to be able to share this time with you guys. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us
Mario.
on, and you are a great host.
Yes.
We felt very comfortable being with you.
Well, I appreciate that. You hear that, everyone? I'm a great host.
Yes.
What a great gift. Again, for John and Diana, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us this evening. As we wrap things up here in the Pacific Northwest, I'd like to thank all of our listeners. Again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you. As we get close to, which will be the next show, which will be our prediction show. Not that we just predict things. I don't know that we ever go back and review them, but it's always fun to do that. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you. And then for those who celebrate Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah, as that approaches us as well, right around the corner, right after Christmas. Again, from the Pacific Northwest, I'd like to thank our guests, John and Diana. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. For my entire team, Mark, Christopher, Jeff Jens, and Sophia Magana, and myself, Mario Magana. Be sure to look up at the sky, because you never know what you might see. Good night.
Good